Hello, this is the KC Writers Fair Authors Series featuring local Kansas City authors. I'm your host, W.H. Mitchell, author of The Arcs of Andromeda and The Dragons of Andromeda. Today we're speaking with Novo Dé. Novo is the author of the Entropy Sessions, a psychological thriller about a man coming to grips with his past. Thank you, Novo Dé, for joining us today. Your book, The Entropy Sessions, has come out. What can you tell us about the book?
Sure. It's a traditional novel. It's not a novella. It's not an epic, and it hits that sweet spot. A nice, easy read. The Entropy Sessions is a lot of things. It's a descent into madness. It's a story of love and loss. And the biggest thing, the connective tissue to all of it is our relationship with technology. You know, how it was in the past, how it is in the present. And my favorite thing to do as a writer is think about the future. So there's elements of the story that is a non-traditional science fiction tale in a way. It's not hard science. You know, we're not in space. You know, like your background. We're not anywhere there. We're just it's still very grounded in reality, but it takes place around 2050, that decade, into the future. And the main core of the story is you're dropped right in the middle of the story. You learn, obviously, you're met with the main character and the secondary main character, the supporting cast. And you're figuring out essentially why he's in the situation he is. So there's a mystery element as well. And it evolves much, hence the name of the work, the Entropy Sessions. Entropy is a physics term. It's essentially the study of disorder in the universe. All right. I've always been fascinated by physics. So your background is perfect. And cosmology, to be exact. So the study of the universe is incredibly fascinating to me. We could talk about that for 20, 30 minutes in and of itself. I won't tangent too much there, but it essentially, just like the measure of disorder in the universe, entropy, the structure of the story takes that same organic essence. So it starts very linear, and then it just kind of unravels, and that's where you see the descent into madness as you follow the main character through his journey and see the traditional arcs and things of that nature until the end, until a lot of reveals come out and see why he's in the situation he's in.
So at the beginning, we don't really know what is happening to him directly. Is that correct?
Exactly. You know that. So the very first chapter, he's having a conversation with his psychiatrist. You learn the basic foundation, the background of the situation and the characters. So you know that he is in court-ordered psychiatric care. Why he's there is the mystery. And that's what we learn as the story unfolds, like I mentioned. And you get hints and tastes. I like to be the kind of writer that respects the audience, knows that there's a lot of smart people out there reading the book. So instead of detailing every tiny little thing, dropping them in the middle of the book, you're going to see jargon. You're going to see different elements of the science fiction world that I created that is already there. And then as you read it, you get to understand, obviously through the narrative, context clues, just dialogue between the characters, what is going on and why.
So I think one of the biggest technology aspects is Charlie. Is that correct? The AI that is the main character's sort of friend,
right?
For a better choice of words.
That's exactly right. So Charlie is like the connective tissue to a lot of the characters in the story. Charlie is an acronym. It stands for Computer Generated Homebound Artificial Resident for a Lifetime of Intellectual Equity, or Charlie. Okay.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, I put a lot of thought into trying. The world building, as we all know, can be sometimes so complicated. The first act of the book is almost like a first season of your favorite television show. There's so much to build and explain, and you have to do it in interesting ways. And that was one of the things that I thought would be a part of our future. Instead of AIs on our phones, are these little things we can't seem to part with,
Right.
or the computer in front of us, the iPad I'm using right now. It's this thing that is essentially it can be a part of your home. And the other technology that's in the story, neurological communication links, is instead of holding a device like a phone or wearing a device like I think Google tried to do, like the Google glasses once, and it didn't take off. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think they're trying to do it again, but it just wasn't mature enough in
and
technology.
and that happens. I think they tried to release something like a Kindle or a Nook, and it didn't take off. And then when the public was ready, it spread like wildfire, right? It completely revolutionized how we read books and stuff. And I played with that. And so going back to Charlie, Charlie is like a lot of AIs that you see in movies and other forms of media. I didn't want to recreate the wheel with what the character is. I definitely am breaking some rules and bending things on what I think an artificial intelligence can be and our relationships with them in the future. But he is definitely a connective tissue, and not only a friend to the main character, his name being Tybalt Nielsen, but he becomes more than that. I don't want to ruin anything for a potential reader, but he becomes so much more that it really transcends what an AI can be.
I mean, in my books, if you've read anything of mine, the robots are basically the characters I think that most people can relate to more than the regular people in my book. I mean, I love robots and I love AI. I've always been irritated
Sure.
by. I mean, I just finished season 2 of Star Trek Discovery.
It's Discovery.
And they have an AI who's evil and trying to kill everybody, which has been
That's
done many
usually
times.
how it is, right? They're
Yeah.
usually evil. I think we see that, and we see that a lot in everything, movies, any kind of your favorite medium, right? In my story, it's you'll see a lot of different shades of gray and colors when it comes to how I represent the AI in my stories, and dualism is a major theme throughout the story. As you read it, I'm fascinated by psychology and dualisms and different things of that nature, like self-contradictory elements that shouldn't go together, but for some reason they really do. And AI is a perfect example of that, where it's an incredible tool, right? It can be, in the case of Tybalt, his friend, his mentor, etc. But then it can be these very scary things, and it's easy to make a villain out of them, just like this archetypical villain. But we see it in the real world too. We see our data being bought left and right and used against us, and you see that in the media all the time. And so I think that's a dualism right there. Technology can be this incredible, enriching, life-changing thing, and then it can be such a scary, terrifying thing just on paper. I mean, just on you don't need like a Terminator over your shoulder, right? It's just the idea of someone selling your entire identity to somebody else.
Yeah, I've actually been studying data science recently, and
Really,
the amount of data that even Facebook gets daily is in the terabytes. I mean, every single day.
it's like we can never comprehend it, like astronomical numbers. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're interested in psychology, and obviously the mind is an important aspect of this book. You have a character, Christopher Cohen. He's a psychiatrist. Just as people sometimes portray AI as evil,
Sure.
How do you portray the psychiatrist in this book?
Um, Again, I don't want to go too deep into his character, being afraid that I could give something away. I don't want any spoilers. Um, let's just say that Dr. Cohen is, like a lot of my characters, is complicated. And what I mean by that is, I think it's, again, my style of writing is, I think it's easy, or we're drawn to creating stereotypes or traditional archetypical characters. You know, you got the brooding hero, or you got the damsel, or you got the villain, right? Where I think when you get to know my characters, you'll learn that you think you want to put them into a box, but as the story evolves, the entropy really starts to take off. You start to see different sides of them, sides you probably never saw coming. And as much as we want to, as much as we think we have someone pegged, I want to surprise the reader and have reveals that, make them as much three-dimensional as I can. Not to say that those traditional characters aren't important. I love, take a superhero, a well-made superhero movie. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. I think
Sure.
it can be done really. It can be extremely well done under the right hands and the right production director, obviously writers. But I just feel like in my work, I've always wanted it to mirror real life and the reality that we face every day. And life is messy. It's hard. It's difficult. It's so many different things, and I want my characters to really feel like they're rooted in that reality.
Speaking of reality, you said basically towards the end of the book, things start to unravel, entropy starts to take over chaos. Is that, or
It's
over?
I would say, let's just say the first act, the first main introductory act of the story, just like a TV series, it definitely is a lot of world building, and it establishes rules, but then immediately, and in a very subtle way, I don't want to ruin anything for anybody again, but there's an Easter egg almost right away that I place in front of the reader. And just to give someone a hint, it has to do with the chapters of each of the acts,
Right.
that says that this is different, this is changing, it's already evolving. So as soon as I get into the second act, it starts to evolve, and then it just keeps going. It's a roller coaster. It's almost exponential.
So your book is, I mean, is it literally separated in acts?
No, it's just semantics.
Right.
I just how I like to talk about them.
The reason I ask,
Sure.
Tybalt is a character in Shakespeare, as I'm
Exactly.
assuming.
Romeo and Juliet. That's right.
Is there any connection, or is that just coincidental?
Yes and no. I am absolutely obsessed with the classics, and I feel like sometimes I feel like people are forgetting them too, and we shouldn't. Yeah. We should remember the classics. We should keep reading them. We should keep teaching them. And so my story has I wouldn't say extreme amount, a good number of allusions dedicated to a lot of the classics. My favorite piece of all time is George Orwell's 1984. And in a lot of ways, I wanted to kind of create a contemporary 1984 with the Entropy Sessions. But what surprised me, and I think a lot of writers, and maybe even a lot of readers, a lot of audiences, the artwork you start with doesn't always shape to be what it is in the end. It really changed once I got to the end. And it essentially turned into a love and loss kind of story, but with a lot of other social commentary and elements within. But I definitely want to create something that can not only celebrate the classics, but start to stand on its own for a new audience. really bring your point home is yes, there is a direct correlation to Romeo and Juliet when it comes to Tybalt and the other characters in the story, but just made into a completely different fictional tale.
Well, this is your first book, your first published book, is that right?
This is my first published work, yes. We have a couple more works in the oven. We're going to be releasing a story that is connected to the Entropy Sessions. Like a lot of writers, we like to create an entire universe, a world, things that we can tie together for not only trilogies or really, fantasies. You always see the long epic kind of forms. But the Entropy Sessions is definitely something that I cannot shy away from creating a world within. And the next story is like I think I mentioned, is a novella. We're going to be releasing that this summer, June 2020. And it is a standalone story, but it definitely has enough tie-ins and Easter eggs to connection to the Entropy Sessions that if you were to read both, you would see a large amount of connections. That story is called Adulteration. And I'll just leave that title there, and the reader can figure out what I mean by that when they finish it. The next thing we wanted to make was a short story, again, a standalone piece, but it does have connective tissue to some of the previous works, and that's called Post Meridian. That's going to be out this fall.
Well, that sounds exciting. I'm always very interested in the mind as well.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to looking at those once they come out. At some point, we're going to have the KC Writers Fair at the Indian Creek Library. It's just a matter of when.
Absolutely. This fall or 2021?
No, we're gonna do it yearly anyway, but
Okay.
I would very much like to get it in this year.
Excellent.
June might be too early, but I was hoping June, but if not June, then July.
Okay, so still this summer.
We'll see. We're gonna have to wait to see what Johnson County wants to do and the library. So until that happens. In the meantime, though, we can read your book, The Entropy Sessions. Is there anything else you'd like to close with about your book?
Yes. We, Novo Dé Productions, the small media company that we're trying to build, we want to be honest with all of our viewers, any audience we build, and make it very clear that this is not for children, even a young adult audience. This is a very hard R piece of work, 18 or 17, 18 and up. And we're very proud of that. That we want to target a strong audience, a strong adult audience specifically. So there's graphic language, there's violence, there's gritty, raw elements to it that is, viewer discretion is advised. But like I said before, I think once you get into it and fall into the world of the story, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of turns and like I said earlier, a bit of a roller coaster ride especially once the entropy of the Entropy Sessions really starts.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, young adult books were so popular there for a while.
Oh man! Oh my God! Yes.
It's nice to see adults being.
What about everybody else?
Yeah, exactly.
Again, I don't want to take anything away from them. I love those pieces, and those have definitely a place in our society, and those are amazing works. The Harry Potter series, things like that. Right. I just wanted to start, building a world on the opposite end, the adult material, entertainment.
Well, very good. Thank you again, Novo Dé, for joining us. I look forward to seeing you at the KC Writers Fair
likewise,
when it ever happens. And
yeah,
thank you for
we'll have to get a drink or something
today. And I look forward to seeing you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks to Novo Dé for joining us. If you'd like to read the Entropy Sessions, it's available on Amazon. The author series is brought to you by the KC Writers Fair, coming to the Indian Creek Library in Olathe, Kansas. See our Facebook page for dates and times. I'm your host, W.H. Mitchell. Until next time, goodbye.